sitting inside the cockpit of a B-52 Stratofortress, a nuclear-capable bomber flown by the United States Air Force. Right now we're getting set up for a bomb run, and any second we'll be dropping 4 BDU-50s directly over our target. This is as close as it gets to witnessing the sheer strength and precision of one of the most powerful bombers in history.
In the world of military aviation, many aircraft come and go, designed for a specific era only to be replaced with something newer, faster, or more advanced. Very few last for generations, but the B-52 is almost immortal.
The B-52 is a long-range, high-altitude strategic bomber. It's capable of flying up to 50,000 feet at subsonic speeds, carrying both conventional and nuclear warheads in order to support U.S. national directives.
It was built for a nuclear war that never happened. It's outlasted the very aircraft designed to replace it. Before men walked on the moon, before color television was mainstream, this bomber has been flying missions all across the globe.
And today, the B-52 remains one of the most lethal and feared aircraft in the world.
So that brings me here to Barksdale Air Force Base, home of the B-52 Stratofortress, where we've been given special permission to go behind the scenes of this legendary aircraft. We'll be meeting the pilots, the crew, and the unsung heroes who allow this aircraft to fly, capping off with a final mission, a flight inside the B-52 to experience what makes this bomber so unstoppable.
Do you feel it blowing air anywhere on your face?
21 to 22, expecting a performance speed down.
Going over to narrow track, thank you.
302 and stand by, that's checkup.
Checklist for brakes.
Check.
Flat lever. Down.
1,300 feet of this weapons speed, 19 BU-50. Helmet up on 16.8. Now, throttles. Throttles, perfect on stick. Brakes, airborne. Brakes.
Now, to really understand the B-52 and its significance, you have to go back, way back, to the late 1940s when, after World War II, the Air Force announced the need for a new long-range bomber, capable of carrying out its missions without relying on foreign bases and airfields to land and resupply.
You have to remember, at the time, the United States was entering into the Cold War. We needed a bomber capable of flying long durations carrying nuclear weapons to counter the Soviet threat.
Boeing, who at the time had dominated the production of heavy bombers with aircraft like the B-17 Flying Fortress and B-29 Superfortress, unveiled their prototype for their new long-range bomber in 1952, coincidentally nicknaming it the YB-52.
On the YB-52, only the front landing gear is steerable. Its maximum takeoff weight is in the neighborhood.
This prototype featured a tandem cockpit,
a tandem seating arrangement for the pilot and
pilots sitting front to back instead of side by side. It was also missing a few vital capabilities such as aerial refueling that would later be added. After 3 years of additional testing and modifications, the first B-52 was delivered to the Air Force in 1955. And in 1962, in a span of just 7 years, 744 B-52s were built and delivered.
And we worked every day as though we were at war.
Today, there are roughly 75 B-52s still in active service, with the youngest being around 63 years old. Now, there's a lot of modernization that's going into keeping these aircraft still actively flying. They're getting new engines, new navigational capabilities, new communication capabilities, new weapon capabilities. All of these will come together to extend the lifespan of the B-52 well into the 2050s, giving the aircraft a service life over 100 years.
So my first reaction when seeing the B-52 up close is that this thing is massive, like truly massive. What's it like for you to just walk up to this thing every day?
Yeah, it really is rewarding to walk up to this. It's a piece of history. I mean, you have this massive nuclear-capable bomber. You're looking at it 180 feet from wingtip to wingtip as I approach this thing, 140 feet in length. I mean, it's a 3-story tall aircraft. It is truly humbling.
Now, the B-52's official name is the Stratofortress, right? But I heard you guys refer to it by its nickname, the Buff. Do you want to break down what that stands for?
That's right. The B-52, affectionately referred to as those who fly it as the Buff, the big, ugly, fat fellow.
When you hear the B-52 described as one of the most powerful bombers in the world, because of how it integrates into the nuclear triad, it truly is. The triad is designed to ensure nuclear deterrence by providing 3 different ways to launch a nuclear strike: by air, by land, or by sea, making it virtually impossible for an enemy to eliminate all of them in a single strike.
There are land-based intercontinental ballistic missiles, there's submarine-launched ballistic missiles, and then there are nuclear-capable bombers. The B-52 is a very flexible and visible representation of the U.S. nuclear deterrent so that we can reassure both our allies and deter our adversaries from ever taking an act of aggression against us. So as you'll see here, this is the bomb bay of the B-52, or the business end of the bomber, as we like to call it. In total, the bomber can carry up to 70,000 pounds of weapon. That's not just here in the bomb bay. One of the greatest features of it is that we can expand, and on our left and our right wings, there are pylons where we can mount a considerable number of weapons as well.
So unlike modern stealth bombers like the B-2 and soon to be B-21, the B-52 isn't sneaking into enemy territory to drop its ordnance, but it's still used. So what are the main advantages this platform has over modern bombers?
That's right, yeah, the B-52, it has that vast array of weapons that it can carry. In any number of configurations, we can carry up to 70,000 pounds of weapons. So you have not only the capacity, but the quantity of the weapons that you can carry as well. The B-52's been around for 60 plus years, and when you think about that, we don't have to maintain the same level of stealth capability that more modern bomber aircraft are, making it much more affordable to fly.
Because the Stratofortress was designed as a nuclear deterrent during the Cold War, it wasn't originally intended for conventional warfare. And from 1961 to 1968, in what was known as Operation Chrome Dome, nuclear-armed B-52s were flying for 24 hours a day, ready to strike at a moment's notice.
Pilot to crew, this is it. We're going in.
But by the mid-1960s, with the introduction of one of the most controversial wars in American history, the B-52's mission evolved, and its impact became undeniable. In 1965, during the height of the Vietnam War, the B-52 became central to air operations, and by the end of the war had dropped more ordnance over Southeast Asia than the total amount dropped by all countries in World War II combined. In 1972, Operation Linebacker became one of the final bombing campaigns of the war. Over 200 B-52 bombers flew 730 missions over an 11-day period, aiming to push for negotiations that would lead to the United States withdrawal from the Vietnam War.
When a lot of people think World War II and bombers, they think about the ball turrets that existed at the time.
Being a gunner is an exciting and rewarding duty. If you want to fly...
What a lot of people don't realize is that the B-52, from its inception, it also operated a tail machine gun.
We had a tailgunner who was physically...
It was a quad 50 caliber machine gun that required a gunner to crawl from the crew compartment all the way through the aircraft in flight to the tail section for their combat operations. In 1991, the Air Force decided to do away with the tail gun, and they modified all existing B-52s at that time so that it represents the modern bomber that we have today.
The B-52 isn't just an iconic military aircraft, it's also deeply embedded within pop culture as well.
I took myself to the city of dreams, stayed up late to walk the street.
From classic films like Dr. Strangelove, where a B-52 crew embarks on a rogue nuclear mission, to the band the B-52s, known for songs like Love Shack and Rock Lobster. Even the popular 1960s beehive hairstyle was nicknamed the B-52 because it resembled the iconic nose cone on the B-52 bomber.
The wings themselves, they actually sit about 6 degrees angled above the fuselage of the aircraft. So what that transitions to in flight is, as the aircraft flying around, the wing is parallel to the ground, which puts the fuselage actually angled slightly downwards, looking like the aircraft's almost flying at you.
Now, right underneath the wings, the iconic B-52 engines, the twin pods, forever linked to this aircraft. I mean, talk to us about the performance of these things.
That's right. Each of these engines, single TF-33s, producing 17,000 pounds of thrust. The B-52, to my knowledge, is the only aircraft in the entire world operating with 8 engines currently.
So from a pilot perspective, is that pretty comforting when you're up there knowing you've got 8 engines?
It's a fantastic feeling, yeah. If you start having trouble with one of your engines, I'm a lot less concerned if I do have to shut it down.
It's definitely rare to see an aircraft flying with basically the same engines for the last 60 years. But as we've learned, the B-52 is rather unique. While you might think you could just swap out the 4 twin pods with newer engines like we see on today's commercial airliners, because of the aircraft's overall design, they just wouldn't fit and would cause issues with ground clearance. However, with the Air Force's plan to continue flying this jet well into the 2050s, there is a massive engine upgrade plan in the works, in what will ultimately be designated as the B-52J. So the standard crew on the B-52 is 5 individuals. Your 2 pilots, 2 weapons systems officers, and your electronic warfare officer. A position the Air Force is planning on consolidating in the near future, which will bring the crew from 5 down to 4. Now, I'm currently on the upper level of the B-52's double-deck crew compartment, and the design was made to allow the bomb bay to have as much space as possible, while also allowing the ejection seats to operate effectively. Now, here in the B-52, the pilots actually eject upwards, and the weapons systems officers down below eject downwards. And other than that, really just room for the necessities. There's a single bunk here where you can lie down on long flights, an easy bake oven to heat up food as well. If you're wondering if there is a toilet, there is, or rather more of a funnel, but come on, she's a 60-year-old airplane. We can cut her a little slack.
All right, welcome to the B-52 cockpit. This is my office in the sky right here. As you'll notice immediately, everything's kind of analog. That's done intentionally, right? You have to think about why the B-52 was designed. It was designed for nuclear war. It has to withstand an EMP. So a lot of these instruments haven't been modernized in the history of the aircraft because 1, we know it works, and 2, we know it'll work with a nuclear detonation in the background. You also notice our famous 8 fans of freedom right here. We have 8 engines right here. Every single one, we can control them individually right there. In order to monitor those, we have this stack of instruments going across the center of the instrument gauge right here so that both pilots are able to monitor their engine status throughout the flight. Another popular item a lot of people ask about in the B-52 is the crosswind crab. Well, that is right here. Pilots will take that. If we need to land with a heavy crosswind, we can physically swivel our landing gear off of the nose of the aircraft so that with my low-hanging wings, I don't strike a wing or an engine pod as I try to land the aircraft. So I can take that and physically twist in a different landing gear heading.
And I know to drop the ordnance, that's done from down below, but do you guys have a consent switch up here to, make sure it's all approved before something drops?
Yeah, that's right. The pilots have the ability, we do call it a munition consent switch. I can unlock that, given the radar navigator the authority to release the weapons. And if need be, I can also pre-arm a nuclear strike from up here.
All right, heading down now to the lower deck of the B-52. And one thing I was wondering is whether or not there was a way to actually access the bomb bay during flight. And it turns out there is. It involves opening this hatch right here, crawling through this tiny opening onto the catwalk, through the wheel well, and then into the bomb bay. And if you're doing that during flight, you better be wearing a parachute.
Inbound course is a 125 plus or minus 10 degrees.
So the role of a weapons systems officer, or a WISO, is to control all of the navigation, weapons, and communication equipment on the jet. It's everything other than fly the jet.
Crew, 30 seconds to release. We are auto unlocked.
The WISO will handle all of the weaponeering, all of the management of the weapons themselves, and actually actuating the buttons, or the pickle switch, right, to release those weapons.
Standing by release authority. Crew cleared hot.
Downstairs, you have the 2 WISOs. On the right side is the navigator, who's typically the more junior of the offense compartment. And on the left seat is the radar navigator, who's going to be the more senior. The reason they're the more senior is because they control the radar and all of the weapons, as well as the targeting pod.
So the first thing I noticed when I sat down here is there's no windows. What's
That's
that
right.
like for you on 30-hour plus sorties, not knowing whether it's
It is exhausting.
light or dark?
Yeah, it's exhausting. A lot of WISOs, particularly new to the aircraft, have a difficult time with sort of feeling spatially disoriented or with air sickness in particular. That's something that through exposure can sort of get trained out of you. And most of our students, or most B-52 crew members, end up overcoming that hurdle relatively quickly. There's the bunk upstairs. Some people find places to hang hammocks. Some people spread out all the bags and cushions and lay down on the floor. Staying hydrated is a very important part as well to keep the air sickness at bay.
Now, when I said the crew of the B-52 includes the pilot, co-pilot, and Wizzos, that wasn't entirely true. When you have a 60-year-old aircraft weighing 185,000 pounds, it takes a lot more than just brakes to stop it upon landing. Because the B-52 does not have thrust reversers, it deploys a drag chute out the back to help slow it down, while also minimizing wear and tear on the brake system. Part of that work starts right here at the parachute shop.
So the B-52 will land, they will pop their drag chute. Maintainers will literally drag it across the flight line, like getting it all disgusting. They'll roll it up in a ball of mess and then they'll literally drop it off right at our doorstep. We drag it in, we start untangling it. It is 90 feet long, 185 pounds. It has 48 suspension lines and 48 gores.
So I've seen riggers pack normal parachutes, right? Like the pilots wear when they eject, but nothing like this. I mean, this is what, like 10 times the size?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Is it a pretty tedious process making sure this is packed away?
It's pretty easy, it's just a workout. It's very labor intensive. We literally just stuff and jump on it and doing everything we can to fit it into the bag.
So from start to finish, how long does it take to pack this?
Depending on the repairs, it can take up to 30 to 45 minutes.
That's pretty fast.
Oh yeah.
Not very graceful.
You might have to grab a little bit more because it's all coming out.
I feel like I made that worse. So this is it, the completed 185-pound drag chute for the B-52. And after this, it goes to what? Get installed in the back of the aircraft?
Yes, it does.
The little things you don't think about, all the work that goes behind the scenes to get one of these aircraft safely landing.
Welcome to the 307 Munitions Assembly Operations Bay. Here, this is where we would build all the ordnance you may find loaded onto a B-52.
So walk me through all the different ordnance and bombs that actually can be dropped from the B-52, because I know there's a lot, right?
We have plenty. Today we're going to be building the GB31 version 1, but we also have the version 3, the 56, the 54, the 38, 12. We also have cluster bomb units, we have missiles, and a plethora of others.
Ready?
Yep.
So being a crew chief on a B-52, people compare it a lot to being a Jiffy Lube mechanic, right? So we do tires, brakes, oil, but we also do the inspections on the aircraft.
All right, ready? Slide it in.
First, we're going to have to tie these down. We're going to get our line delivery section to come down here, hook up with a bobtail. They're going to take it wherever it needs to go, whether it be storage or directly to the aircraft.
I would do it like that.
People have worked on this plane for years and years, and being able to work on something with this much heritage means a lot to me.
Now, one of the most interesting aspects of the mission we're flying today is that the crew is comprised of both active duty and Air Force reservists. If you haven't heard of the reserve, it's a unique opportunity that allows you to serve your country part-time, where you can also maintain a career in the civilian world as well.
Runway 33 use.
I thoroughly enjoyed my time on active duty, but the reserves is like a choose-your-own-adventure. What that allowed for me and my family is more predictable time at home, and also I love to fly and I love to teach, so I get to do as much of that as I want to do.
Students will practice too. Here's what the B-52 is capable of.
The 307th Bomb Wing here at Barksdale Air Force Base is pretty unique in that it allows airmen to work or fly on aircraft like the B-52 while also maintaining status as a reservist, giving them flexibility to stay in a location they call home, as well as tons of other benefits such as healthcare and tuition assistance.
3 in Python, going over to narrow track 112.
The biggest advantages would be I was able to go back to school. I was starting a family at that time, so it allowed me the opportunity to stay where I was at and bed down and create a lot for myself.
Look at the parameters.
If you're interested in applying for the reserve or learning more about the career fields that are offered, you can visit airforce.com/reserve or visit the link down in the description below. All right, so we've covered the history, learned from the pilots and crew, and got an up-close look at maintenance, munitions, and some of the support team, meaning at this point, I think we're just about ready to get geared up for a flight in the mighty Buff. Now, this isn't going to be your ordinary training flight, because as you can see behind me, maintenance is currently loading 4 BDU-50s so that we can go out to the range and conduct an actual bomb run. We're talking about one of the most powerful bombers in American history, loaded up to give us a taste of why it's been the backbone of American air power for the last 6 decades. I hope you're ready for this one, because it should be pretty fun.
21 to 22 expected to perform a speed down.
Our normal B-52 ground operations, because of the complexity of all of our systems, we plan for about 1 hour and 40 minutes of checking systems before we actually exit the runway. But when we really need to get off the runway quickly, then they also developed the B-52 to have the capability to do cartridge starts. So that's where we would introduce a 8-inch cartridge. It's like a shotgun shell into the back of each of the engines, and with a simple flip of a switch, and we're starting all engines immediately, and we're ready to taxi in a very low single-digit number of minutes.
You guys can tie up any loose ends until then or drop the kids off the pool. Great.
It truly is an honor being able to take this aircraft up, fly it around, knowing what it is capable of, knowing that you are trained and equipped to execute that mission if you truly have to, but also very thankful that nobody has been asked to ever do such a thing in this aircraft before.
Checklist, brakes, check, flap lever, down.
We train often for the nuclear mission so that we're proficient, but we hope that we never have to use them.
Clear left and left.
Clear right for left. Defense ready. Offense. Let's go. Boom. Airspeed.
70 knots. Now.
Now's timing. Coming up on 16.8. Now.
Moving throttles.
Throttles, perfect on stick.
Brakes.
Airborne.
Brakes. Here.
6 in transit.
I guess all this gear is just second nature to you guys at this point. Like, it's so overwhelming for the first-time flyer.
Yeah, and fortunately or unfortunately, we're very used to checking each other over, because when we're flying with the brand new guys, that's like step 1. On the dollar ride, we're like, we got one goal, have fun. Goal 2, strap in correctly, unstrap correctly every time.
Now, one thing you might have already noticed is that even though the B-52 is a bomber and not a fighter jet, the crew is still required to wear helmets and oxygen masks during what they call critical phases of flight.
As a combat-coded aircraft, we're equipped with ejection seats. Much like the B-1 is also a large aircraft that's combat-coded, they would have an increased need for the ability to egress the aircraft if they were to receive any type of damage.
Depending on what phase of flight we were in, that meant taking off my parachute, removing my helmet, oxygen mask, visor, and flight gloves, and then putting everything right back on. I probably did this over a dozen times, and because of how cramped the crew compartment is, with really no room to stand up straight, definitely makes things even more challenging.
You're doing so much up here while having to think about this. It's a lot. It's impressive.
Not a lot of automation on this.
And I've heard the B-52 is one of the hardest aircraft aerial refueling. Is that true?
Yeah, I haven't tried refueling anything else, but from what I hear, it is definitely one of the most difficult. And then one other challenge for us is that it's not something that you can easily practice in our simulator. So all of our practice generally comes from hands-on in the aircraft.
The B-52 typically burns about 20,000 pounds of fuel per hour, and each one of those hours is going to get us somewhere between 400 and 500 miles. Adding aerial refueling virtually makes this limitless. The only thing that's going to prevent the B-52 from continuously flying is the endurance of the crew itself.
One of the awesome recent benefits is we started doing virtual reality simulators with the B-52 air refueling, and that's really helped the students out a lot.
So right here, you can actually start to break out towards the forward part of the tanker's underside right there. There's a white line, there's a little antenna that bisects it.
And that's a visual representation for the receivers that you're on about a 30-degree azimuth on the rear of the tanker. Just slowly move forward, almost like a walking pace. It's only a couple feet in reality. As we move into that envelope, we should be able to park it right here. You can reach overhead, and you can plug our aircraft.
Contact.
Tanker contact. Contact. Now, ideally, I just hold the center of this envelope for whatever period of time it takes to air refuel. Depending on what you're tasked to do, you could be taken on anywhere from just a couple thousand pounds to I've seen as much as 120,000 pounds in a single air refueling. At about 6,000 pounds of fuel per minute, it can take about
down 4. Move down.
It could take about 20 minutes or so in contact just to get the fuel right there.
Wow.
Bree, do you have a Sam Eckholm on board?
Sure do.
Very cool. Got a couple Sams on board.
Oh. Hey, Sam, say hi.
Hey guys, this is Sam. Don't tell the B-52 crew, but the 135 is my favorite airplane.
That's what we like to hear. Yeah!
Thanks for helping us out.
Anytime, glad to help.
Once aerial refueling was complete and the tanker crew cleared off, we began to plot a course for the bomb range, where we would soon be conducting our training run. But as I sat there in the instructor pilot seat of one of the most powerful bombers in history, there was one thought I just couldn't shake from my mind. A thought that kept creeping back in. What would things feel like in a real mission, with actual nuclear weapons loaded up on the B-52? And for the crew, what must feel like the weight of the world on their shoulders. In high-stakes moments like these, you'd expect every measure to be in place, ensuring the crew's safety down to the smallest detail. And as it turns out, there is one incredibly unique piece of equipment, one that most people don't even know exists.
Hey, for a nuclear mission, one of our threats is a nuclear detonation and flash blindness. So one of the things that B-52 crew dog uses is PLZT. Stands for polarized lead lanthanum zirconium titanate. It's goggles that we'd wear to protect ourselves from flash blindness. So even if you had a nuclear detonation 150 miles away, that could cause flash blindness up to 30 seconds. And the closer you get, the more it's going to damage the eyes, to the point where you might not even be able to see.
Because of the material these goggles are made from, the lenses can darken within milliseconds of detecting a nuclear flash, providing instantaneous protection. And because they're fully integrated into the pilot's helmet system, it ensures that the crew can focus on the mission instead of worrying about their vision in a worst-case scenario.
The first time I saw those PLZT goggles, it looked so dystopian. What's it like for you the first time you put them on?
Yeah, it's surreal putting those things on. The visibility is relatively poor out of them, but at the end of the day, I certainly trust that they're going to be able to block out the light faster than I can, so that I'm able to continue flying this aircraft with a nuclear detonation in the background.
And the goal is to hopefully never have to wear them, right?
That's right.
B-52 has 4 different types of descent profiles that we can do. The speed down is something that we use when we need to get to a low altitude environment as quickly as possible. Whenever it's called for on the crew or the pilot decides to do a speed down, they'll pull the throttles to idle and then pull our air brakes up to maximum. Immediately push the nose over, in our case 20 degrees nose low, to get into low altitude environment.
Strapped in?
Strapped in and ready.
Here we go.
Send it.
Brake 6.
Brakes 2. Woohoo! Woo! Brakes 4.
Copy.
Our speed down maneuver definitely caught me a little off guard. The last time I did something similar to this was in our C-17 video when we did a tactical descent. And I think I got a little too comfortable assuming this was a bomber that didn't have that much maneuverability.
All right, altimeter set now, 3017.
Cutting the speed back 300 true.
Roger.
Punch through the clouds.
Well, boy, was I wrong, because as soon as the pilots initiated the speed down, going to around 1,000 feet AGL, I was practically floating out of my seat, a very similar feeling to the C-17.
Offense, you're ready for a right-hand turn for the dry pass?
Excuse me, offense, affirmative.
Got it.
For For our bomb run today, we're employing BDU-50s, which is an inert version of a 500-pound Mark 82. There's no explosion for these, which allows us to train in a number of different airspaces that don't restrict us from high explosive weapons. One of the most challenging things to drop is an unguided BDU-50 or Mark 82. It requires a lot of precision both in altitude, airspeed, and especially heading to the order of tenths of a degree of precision.
Alright, so I'm now down here in the Wizzo compartment. This is where the show pretty much happens during any sort of live drop. And I'll show you this cool screen they have that actually lets you sort of see the actual impact of the ordnance. So that's a pretty cool station you got.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we've got good fusion going on here between the radar screen, our moving map, and then the targeting pod MFCD as well.
You're Roger. For line 6, I got Whiskey, Quebec, 3-3.
847 49607. No mark. East 1224 meters. Be respect overhead. Shared many marks restrictions.
Count for Black at 70. Cleared hot. Scout back there.
Alright, cleared hot.
2, 1, release. Weapon away, switch is safe.
Splash. Like a copy splash.
Oh, close. 15 foot.
I remember the first time hearing that the miss was, I think, 15 feet or so to the left, which is kind of funny because in a real-world environment, firing like a Mark 82, missing by 15 feet would definitely still accomplish the objective. But for our crew flying, they're chasing perfection, so they want nothing other than a direct hit.
All right, crew, rinse and repeat of the last one. Any questions?
Negative.
Nope.
Sweet, that's TV, go.
This next one is right 2. Did you pass that?
Affirmative.
Sweet, thanks.
And crew, that was a 15-foot miss, by the way.
15 whole feet.
We can do better.
Yeah.
As every single weapon that you feel pushing off of the aircraft is going to cause just a tiny little bit of bank as you start to feel those things plink off.
Stand by release.
Wings level.
Smoky 1, Roger, squad 0330.
2, 1, release.
Off hot, 8 seconds.
Switch is safe, clear maneuver.
Roger.
Oh, direct hit.
Alley 604 departure, radar contact.
Oh, nice shot. Just Sparks.
Smoky 1, you're radar contact 22 miles northwest of Alexandria. Maintain VFR.
It's a team effort, and hearing everything go down on comms and then seeing it in person, it's pretty neat.
Black Cat, Scout 93, that was all we had today. We're in the climb. I'm going to coordinate exit for the area. Thanks for the work.
Dropping gear.
Roger. Flaps 100% lever down, pilot.
100% lever down, go. Show 165, 165, 165.
Active support the bombers. The bombers would have to be refueled at least once, usually twice, while they were up on the north hill, on the north front.
The instrumentation and everything in here is as it was when they first started flying, 56, and
target trip to setting up. Brake 6, trips reset, brakes off, stand by.
Well, that's definitely one for the books, the mighty B-52 Stratofortress. This thing first flew over 70 years ago, and all these years later, it's still doing its job. But it's not just about the airplane, it's about the people, the mission, the crew, and everyone who comes together to work on a platform like this. To Barksdale Air Force Base, thank you so much for having me. I hope you guys enjoyed coming along for this ride. And that's it from here with the mighty B-52 Buff. I'll catch you next time.